Yeah.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I guess I am confused. Mauricio, this is my friend that you've heard so much about, Ted Barrett.
Hello, Mauricio.
How are you, Ted?
Good, how are you? Where are you now? I was there a couple years ago umpiring spring training. Worked there at WBC. Love that city. Crowded, but a lot going on. Makes New York look like
Hello, everybody, and welcome to
town.
round number 32. This is the WBC Talk. Stay home, stay safe, and we hope you're enjoying it. This time, Mauricio, you missed your jersey and your hat. This is baseball.
What's up with
This
that?
is the champions, of course, Kansas City Royals, San Francisco Giants. I think Barry Lindenman also has the San Francisco.
Yep.
There you go.
I'm supportive New York.
I got Foley.
This is going to
There
be
you
baseball
go.
umpires and boxing judges. But first, let me introduce 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗡𝗗. She's the director of the WBC University. Hello, 𝗧𝗔.
Hi, Victor. Hi, Mauricio, Jill, Barry, Steve, everybody. It's very nice to be at this panel. I feel like at home with you guys, but I also miss my jersey. Okay, but if I have to choose a team, I'll choose the Dodgers. Okay, so next time I'll wear it.
Right.
Mauricio, I got this one for you.
Okay. Good. Okay. During the panels, I've been trying to share at the beginning of each panel just positive thinking that will help us to go through this confinement. And we've been talking about the benefits of thinking positive, of training our mind, and how our brain sometimes trick us, okay, and betray us also, because it has a tendency to think negative, okay, because today I want to share with you a small technique of meditation, okay? Some sports psychologists, they use this technique with the athletes to help them to be calm, to have, to recognize their body sensations, okay? And it's called the B2 during this meditation. You can practice it very, very quick, make eyes, and take a deep breath. Just sit up straight and just your head, your hair, your eyes, your nose, your neck. And it's going to be, or you start noticing that maybe your head start tickling a little bit, okay? That means you are going to experience that many thoughts come to your mind, chest, your legs, your feet, and do that from bottom to your feet, or one of your foot folder, okay? You're going to feel a pole. That's the purpose of this meditation, okay? To know, to feel, we are going to low anxiety, okay? We are going to focus a lot. I've tried all the sensations I share with you, I experience them, and it's good to take some time off just for us and don't let the change and practice different things. So today you have some tips for by Paisana.
Thank you.
Thank you, 𝗧𝗔. And now I would like to introduce Mauricio 𝗧𝗟𝗡, president of the World Boxing.
Hello, Victor. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited for this episode to understand what this is. It's a daily video conference that we established through Boxing WBC University when this lockdown began. This is to keep the WBC family, the boxing community, the WBC out of this situation, to simply be together with friends, even we are very close to each other. This meeting of Steve Morrow's idea has been delayed. It will happen eventually one of these days. My greatest passion is baseball. Without a doubt, when I started walking, I was in the baseball park. My father, he was signed by the Boston Braves in the 40s, and he broke his leg when he's led at home just before the season started, so he was brought back to Mexico. So destiny brought us to boxing. Could have been baseball, but I played baseball since I was 3 years old. I represented Mexico in Panama in a World Cup. I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan from the Red Machine. Johnny Bench was my hero. And I just love, I like to share something with you. I would say 5 out of 7 nights when I go to bed and I close my eyes, all I do is think that I'm in the plate, bases loaded, 2 outs, and I'm just getting to hit that home run to win the World Series. So today is very special for me. Thank you so very much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Mauricio. And now, Jill Diamond. Jill, how are you?
I'm good, Victor. Me to get us going? Or are you just asking how I am?
I'm just asking, but you can go.
No, okay.
It's your show, Jill. Come on.
I should. Well, baseball is rooted in the traditions of North America, and boxing is rooted in all the traditions of the world. There's a lot of similarities. In hitting, a hitter throws his hands and rotates his hips in the same motion that a boxer does throwing a punch. Both can provide good cardiovascular work. Both teams poised for travel. Both, we both love to envy and boo our officials. No, worse, judges or umpires. And more important, which sport has the best stories? We want those stories today. So let's see what the experts say. And I'm going to ask one question. What is one of the most famous baseball players of all time that was also a boxer? God. Boxing was his passion.
Babe Ruth.
Yes. Give that man a prize.
1 point.
So, Barry, you look like you're ready to go. Tell us.
Well, I'm going to tell a story that I might have told Mauricio this, and it's about one of his favorite players who actually was very mean to me when I was a kid. I was living in Miami, and the Orioles were training down in Florida, and they were playing the Cincinnati Reds in a spring training game. And I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And at the time, because it was spring training, Johnny Bench was playing right field. He wasn't playing catcher that day. And one inning, it was, they were just hitting, wasn't even before the game start. And I was on the first base dugout side, and I saw Johnny Bench running in from right field. And I leaned over the dugout with my pen and piece of paper, asking very politely if I could get an autograph from Mr. Bench. And Johnny Bench told me in no uncertain terms, I'll remember it to this day, he could, "Get off the dugout, kid." And I've had a little chip on my shoulder ever since then about Johnny Bench.
For life.
Yeah.
You just broke my heart. No more.
It's a true story. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Okay, now let's introduce, we have with us Ted Barrett, Umpire, and he has been in several great games, one perfect game. Ted, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on. If you go to a baseball game, and sometimes you'll see the players during a break in the action, they'll be talking to me or asking me questions. There's a pretty good chance they're talking about boxing. The players are obsessed with boxing. If there's a fight on, one of your cards are on, the next day on the field, they just want to break down the action. They want to talk about the scoring, the refereeing. They get so mad because I won't badmouth a judge. I'll always say they scored it great. But Joey Votto of the Reds, a lot of you guys know him, great hitter. He's just obsessed with the sport. If you remember a few years ago, Michael Barrett, it was a Chicago crosstown rival. Michael Barrett was catching with the Cubs, 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗞𝗦 with the White Sox. And Michael hit AJ with a right hand, a right cross, after they had a little scrap at home plate. The next time I wasn't there for that game, but the next time I had the Cubs, Michael was so excited to talk to me. He said, "How was my right cross? How was it?" I said, "Good." And when baseball players, they empty the dugouts and get in these baseball fights, as Sean knows, there's hardly a punch thrown. And when there is, it's embarrassing. I tell him, I said, "Don't even bother trying to punch. You're just embarrassing yourself. It looks like a slap." So Michael was so excited. He said, "Ted, how was that punch?" I said, "It was a pretty good right cross. I'll give that to you."
Everybody wanted to punch 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗡𝗗.
That's right. And so baseball, the baseball world is obsessed with boxing. I showed up to the new Cincinnati ballpark a couple years ago, and some of the players had told the security guard, "We need to talk to Ted as soon as he gets here." So I thought there was a rule, or maybe they had a situation in their series beforehand to ask about baseball. And so I went up to the field during batting practice, and the guys crowded around and said, "We got to ask you. We're having an argument. We need you to settle it. Who would win, Tyson or Ali?" And in their primes, both of them. So they have those type of conversations, and that's if you see an umpire talking to a player, especially if it's me, it's usually got nothing to do with baseball, and with me, it's usually boxing. I think Sean, you'll back me up, because we've been in your fine establishment sometimes, and people think, "Oh, look at those players, umpires over there talking. Must be talking about baseball." No, we're probably talking about boxing.
So, what was your response, Ali or Tyson?
It's funny. Well, Ali was my idol growing up, but Mike Tyson was an incredible fighter. So what I tried to explain to them was, this is great on paper. We could have this discussion, but would Ali have played mind games with Mike Tyson? With the way he did with Joe Frazier during the press conferences, and how would Tyson have reacted? There's just too many intangibles to know. So I'm taking kind of a wimp's way out and not putting my foot in one camp. But to those guys, I said Ali, and I made a lot of those guys mad, because they're the younger generation, and they said, "No way." They've never got to see Muhammad fight live. So I went with Ali. I'm sure we could have some discussion about that, an argument, but Muhammad was the greatest of all time as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
He would have definitely got inside of Mike Tyson's head.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. He would have won the fight before the bell even sounded.
Absolutely.
I think Victor is having some trouble with the internet. Yes.
Hey, Ted, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can ask me anything today.
Did you attend the Nolan Robin Ventura fight?
I was not there for that, but and again, and Nolan was as tough as nails, as tough as they come. But if you look at it from a technical standpoint, those weren't real solid punches. And he was holding him and hitting, so we would have had to take a point away for that. But I did ask Robin once, when he was managing with the White Sox, I said, "When you were running out there, what were you thinking?" He said, "You know what? I got about halfway there, and I said, this is a bad idea." And
Still the only player in baseball to get 5 hits off of Nolan Ryan.
Hey, Maria, do you remember the first time you went to Foley's? What was that like? Somebody who loves memory.
Oh, it was just unbelievable. And I have one pending thing to do, one pending baseball to get to Foley's. It's gonna happen one of these days. The one from the Pope, Francis.
Oh, wow.
Just to be there is just unbelievable. It's a heaven. I cannot wait to go back to New York, and I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm gonna go to Jimmy's Corner to pay tribute. He passed away today, 90 years old. And I'm gonna go to Foley's. I'm gonna have 1 beer on every single table, and all the. It's heaven. It's baseball heaven. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a great.
Thank you.
How did you get that going, Sean? I mean, what created Foley's?
What makes Foley's great is the people. so what makes Foley's, is the people that come to Foley's. The memorabilia started quite by accident. We now have, actually, since you were there last, Mauricio, I do now actually have the ball signed by Pope John Paul II.
Oh my God.
So that means I have 4,000 baseballs, one signed by an actual saint and 4,000 signed by sinners, including people here.
What I really respect, I was out of my first visit at Foley's. When I went out, he was saying my favorite baseball is the one signed by the kids. So that speaks what kind of person you are. That was so special. I got in love with Foley's after you showed me that baseball signed by your kids.
Thank you. So I just want, when we're talking about connections between baseball and boxing, I want to give you a story. My father worked at 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗡𝗗 back in the 60s. Obviously, that's where all the famous people went. But there is a wonderful, wonderful story about Frank Sinatra and Bob Hope. And they're both at home one night and they get a call from Toots to come and have dinner with them. So they pull up outside and they're like, what are you doing here? And he's like, Toots told us to come and have dinner. So they walk in and there was a circular bar, and sitting at the bar is 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗡𝗗 and Jack Dempsey. So they're like, come on, we're going to have dinner in the back, but we're waiting on one more person. So they're walking through the room. And I mean, this is Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, and Jack Dempsey. All of a sudden, the entire restaurant gets up and starts to clap. And the boys turn around, and the last guy that's coming for dinner was Babe Ruth.
Wow.
So that's how it comes together. But there's an addendum to the story. So Dempsey would have been an old man at this stage. Dempsey gets into a taxi on his way home. Taxi stops somewhere on Central Park West, and two guys get in either side to try and mug him. Not realizing it was Dempsey. Well, Dempsey hits one of them with a left, one of them with a right, and knocks the two of them out. That's baseball and coming together.
But I knew Jack Dempsey, and I remember shaking hands with him when I was a kid. His hands were like that big. I wouldn't want to have been hit by him, mugger or no mugger.
That's the thing. You talk about the two men who's the biggest hands I've ever met, Lennox Lewis and Boog Powell.
Yep.
And
Oh, wow.
that you may not know, Johnny Weissmuller. Have you ever met Johnny Weissmuller?
No, Tarzan.
Hands. Unbelievable. So there's one thing here is that there's a different way. You guys who judge at ringside, Ted, you have a whole different method of judging that I would love for you to explain how it goes on and when a game is being played and all that goes on in the building, the backup judges, the backup umpires and all of that stuff. Can you explain that? Because I'd never heard that before.
Well, yeah, as I've gone through a little bit of training yesterday, I was on a call with the boxing judges and referees, and it's amazing the similarities as we talk about it, and everything's split second. Behind the plate is a whole different game. Every fourth day we rotate and get behind the plate, and now you're calling balls and strikes, and you'll have over 300 decisions, and they're split second. Guys throwing well over 100 miles an hour now. When I first came up, you had guys throwing in the mid to high 90s, and now you've got 12 guys down in the bullpen that can throw 100. And so our job's gotten tougher over the years, just getting behind the plate and concentrating on every pitch and trying to track the ball with your eyes. And it's just something that takes years to perfect. And the mental concentration of it, blocking out all distractions, blocking out all the fans, and I see that. I compare that to what I believe a referee goes through in the ring, where he's just got to, you've got thousands of people screaming and television cameras a few feet away, and you just got to block that out and concentrate on the action. You get out on the bases, it's a little bit different because you're not having to make a decision so many, but that becomes a challenge also because you'll be standing there for long periods of time, and now all of a sudden you've got a bang bang play. You've got to be locked in and ready to make the decision. And, I see also with the judges and Steve and as you guys sit around the different parts, different sides of the ring, it's all about angles, right? And it's all about trying to get a good look at the action from where you are. It's similar to being on the bases. Unfortunately, we have plays sometimes where we just get blocked out player cuts in front of us, or so we try to avoid that, but it's inevitable. And we have replay to help us out. But I see it's interesting. You could have 3 judges sitting in 3 different positions and see the action in 3 different ways. And I'm just fascinated by the similarities of it with refereeing from body language to I was able to shadow Kenny Bayless a couple of years ago during a card, and the pre-fight instructions to the preparation of checking the ring ropes and all these things that you go through. The professional referees and judges are so good that it makes it look easy. And so a lot of people think they can do that. And I think with umpiring, people watch us and we're really, really good at what we do. And people think, wow, I can do that. But it just takes years to perfect. When you watch a major league umpire work the plate, I think it's really it's a thing of beauty when you see a major league guy do it well.
But
Jill, as a baseball fan, and it's incredible to see, an official, how the scrutiny that it goes for any official in any sport. But for the umpire, you have television network developing a strike zone box, and you have that box in the screen, and then you have a 100-mile-an-hour ball that goes there. The umpire makes a call. Then they have replays from the top. They see the everything, and it's unbelievable how accurate, how the umpires, even with all this looking into it, the percentage of accuracy is just unbelievable.
Yeah, we're really very good at what we do. Go ahead, Sean, I interrupted you.
I was just going to say, the one thing you can get every major league umpire to agree on is they hate that box.
I hate that box as a fan.
Well, it's like CompuBox or punch stats with boxing judges. We're not privy to that information. We don't. That's not part of what we do. But
the box isn't accurate because every stadium is different. So it's a guesstimation. I have one quick question for you, Steve. How has technology changed how you do things?
Not so much, other than being able to get instant information that like the rest of the world does. When it comes to judging, I try and keep it simple. I don't research the fighters of a fight that I'm about to do. I don't want to know what their records were, what their propensities are. If I was a referee, yes, I would use the technology to look at their fights and see what their styles are and what their records are and how many knockouts they may have had or been knocked out, rather. But as a judge, I prefer not to delve into that and just go old school. And sometimes I'll put in earplugs to kind of help block things out. And when the bell rings, just go. But
you don't have the benefit. You don't have time for replay because you can't look down unless you miss whatever else is going on. So
and Mauricio can certainly speak to this. The WBC has used instant replay for a while in their countries, and I've been part of that a couple of times, and it's worked out extremely well. Maybe he can speak to that.
On technology, boxing is so far behind from most sports. And we have a very complicated situation because every single country is a different jurisdiction. In the United States, every single state is a different jurisdiction. So the rules are very hard to implement, especially in the United States and the United Kingdom. We have instant replay for 12 years. And I believe the system that we have is very accurate, is very limited to only those actions that change the result of the fight. The source of a cut, whether it was a punch or a headbutt, a low blow, a punch after the bell, or a major thing that is out of the control, you can review it and then make the right call. I was in UK last year, and the British champion is defending the title. The Mexican challenger goes out and is really punching the champion. I mean, it's clear that he's going to knock him out. And he's gotten hurt. He lands like 25 punches. And then the champion goes down in one knee and the challenger just goes and hits him really hard in the kidney. So he goes down, the referee counts him out. So I immediately saw, because from where I was watching, I knew there was something. You could not tell if his knee was already in the canvas or he was going down, but that blow looked very complicated, but he was counted out. And they announced him as a champion and they raised his arm, but I'm watching the instant replay. The UK did not accept instant replay. I'm watching it on the big screens. So right there and then, we decided it was a no contest and an order a direct rematch. That was a good breakthrough for this rule. The only other thing that we have used of technology for judges is the noise canceling headphones. We use them as a recommendation to avoid distraction or to avoid influence from the surroundings of the judge. This works, for example, in Thailand. The promoter puts people around the judge so they are clapping every blow landed by the Thai. But the visitor boxer lands and nobody says anything. That has an effect. And we're just trying to find ways of using technology to have the winner be the one that should win, or any controversy to be attended and resolved at that moment.
So could you see it? And so could you see a time where they move the judges, where they're up in a booth as opposed to being inside?
That's there have been several attempts to have the judges' chair much higher at a better level, to have 5 judges instead of 3, but to move them in a different, it's a very complicated. Boxing is based on tradition, and to get away from a tradition, it's almost impossible. That's why they don't want instant replay. They want the referee to make a mistake. They don't want to take the human element out. But we are more for justice and the fair play and accuracy, much more than tradition. We just introduced this week a possibility of having judges score remotely from home or from a TV studio. Barry and Steve were in that presentation, and it is an interesting concept. I understand that being right there, it's completely unique, but I don't know if this could lead into something for the future.
These aren't perfect sports, boxing nor baseball. There's always been tradition in the human element. It's like the robotic umpire that they're trying to put in effect for baseball behind the plate, and have an umpire in the back room, translating whatever the robot tells them to pitch. For my dollar, that's ridiculous. You take out the human element of boxing and baseball, and it just detracts from the sports.
Absolutely.
But actually, it's funny, Mauricio, your statement there about baseball, and that's the same argument that was had 3 years ago as they were trying to put instant replay into baseball. So, Ted, do you think that has improved the game?
Ted, your monitor.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I have to have my kids around to help me with technology. But from an umpire standpoint, and Victor, you're wearing a Royals jersey. So, if you go back to 1985, the Don Denkinger play in St. Louis, Don Denkinger is still a bad word. He had game 6, he had a play at first base that replay showed that he missed. And the Royals rallied to go on and win game 6 and game 7. And then in 2010, Armando Galarraga had a perfect game going for Detroit Tigers. And there was a play at first base that Jim Joyce missed. Replay showed he missed, that would have resulted in a perfect game for Galarraga. And so you've got the Joyce play and the Denkinger play, and as umpires, our goal when we walk out on the field is to not have a play named after us. So replay would have benefited both of those plays greatly. And we've taken the umpire off the hook. However, when that solves one problem, but it kind of creates another. Now we have situations where a player will slide into second base and his foot will just momentarily come off the base, and the player's got his glove on him, and it results in an overturn from a safe to an out.
I hate
And
that
Steve's
rule.
been in the replay room with us, and you can see that, you know, you can actually freeze time, 2,500 frames a second. The technicians in there give us an unbelievable look. So we have plays that are overturned that are impossible for the human eye to see. So, you know, there's a give and take. And, you know, Mauricio, I love what you said about you want to do what's fair, because, you know, you want the right result to come out. And I think there are great ways to use that with, you know, hitting after the bell, really being able to slow that down where the human eye and ear can't catch that. Technology can. But baseball also, you have the traditionalists, so I know you're battling that as well, coming together. So I think overall, to answer your question, Sean, I think it's been a good thing. I really do. And as Steve touched on the automatic ball and strike system, you know, you still have to, they don't adjust for the height of the batter. So they've got to find a way to do that in real time. I do know technology, even though, you know, I'm trying to speak when I'm on mute, but technology moves at lightning speed. And I think in a few years here, they probably will have something they'll be able to do that. But until they do, it's not something I think they should bring in yet. And then when they do, that's when they're going to have to decide whether they should or not.
Ted, you do instant replay differently than we do. Could you explain what the setup is when they go to the replay?
Yes. So, you know, as the crew chief, when there's a call on the field, the manager had 30 seconds to challenge it. Now it's going to be 20 starting this season when we get back out there. And then he'll signal for a challenge, and the crew chief and the calling umpire will head over to the headsets, and we will actually be talking to the replay center in New York, where there are actual umpires there. We rotate in there and take our turns in there. So when I get on the headsets, I'm actually talking to a major league umpire, and he is it had been in Chelsea. Now we're going to move down to Rock Center next year. And we will be sitting there with a technician who will be able to give us the replays, rewind, freeze, slow motion, 360, matrix, all these amazing technological things that we can see the replay. We will then tell the crew chief of the decision of whether to confirm the call, to call stands, which means we doesn't have enough evidence, or to overturn the call. And then the umpire relay it. And interestingly, when we get back on the field this year, we're going to be making announcements similar to the NFL and the NHL, where we will announce what's being challenged, and then we'll announce it when we come off the headset. In years past, we had just done the nonverbal signals, and now we're going to add our explanations to that as well.
I can tell you that the technology in this room, in that room that he's talking about, is unbelievable. But even more so is the level of professionalism that these guys have in there. They're just the most elite top of the game, and they generally care about getting every single call right.
What are the steps that get an umpire to the level that you are? I mean, if I wanted to be an umpire, what would I do?
Well, I know you, Joe. I think you'd be a great umpire because you don't take any crud off anybody. But so the first step is to actually go into Umpire School, which is really like a big tryout. There's 2 schools right now, and you get an average of anywhere from 250 to 300 people going to the 2 schools. When that's over, they come together. The minor league umpire program puts together, they take about the top 50 students that year, and then they'll place them into the minor leagues as needed. And then you start at the bottom level. You know, there's AAA, AA, A-ball. You start at the bottom. We affectionately call it Z-ball because it's so low on the alphabet. But umpires, unlike players, they have to umpire at every level. You'll get a prospect, a player, they might pull them up from AA to the big leagues. That doesn't do that in umpiring. We go right through the system. And then once you get to AAA, you will be looked at by major league supervisors, And you hope to get the Arizona Fall League, which is where they bring the prospects, the players and umpires to be looked at. From there, you might get a Major League spring training assignment and be able to work some big league games. And then from there, you might get pulled up to the big leagues for an injury or a vacation. And then you'll go through a few years of doing vacations and injuries in the major leagues. It's like an apprenticeship. And then from there, you got to wait for one of us to die or retire. So you can get a job, because we're like Supreme Court justice appointees. You know, we've got Joe West I think is going to be 68. We have some guys in their 60s, which, by the way, Kenny Bayless, I think yesterday, the day before, had a birthday, 70 years old. He looks like he's about 40.
He's a
great referee. You know, I'm thinking I'm 54, and I'm wondering how, you know, how many more years I can get back there and squat behind the plate. But we have guys doing it into their 60s. So you wait for an opening as a prospect umpire, and then, you know, you hope to get one of the jobs. There's usually 1 or 2 jobs a year that pop up. So, you know, it's been statistically proven that when you go to umpire school, the odds of you getting a job as a major league umpire, you have about the same odds of becoming the governor of your state. You know, there's 76 major league umpires. There was 64 when I started, but expansion and replay has created more. So there's just not that many jobs. And so I'm just extremely lucky and fortunate to be where I am.
And obviously capable. So, I mean, I wonder how many of you judges have ever judged a fight at a baseball stadium?
I have.
Which one?
It was actually Raley Field in Sacramento. It was, I believe, their AAA affiliate there. Granted, it wasn't Yankee Stadium, but for me, it was a world title fight. It was televised.
You mean you were in Yankee Stadium in '61? 40?
I was 5 years old. You know, Mauricio and Jill, Ted's a little too humble to talk about this, but you talk about going through the ranks and reaching the pinnacle. He's done 4 World Series. He was the crew chief in the last World Series that he did. And Victor alluded early on to a perfect game. And I can tell you that Ted is the only umpire in Major League history ever to be behind the plate for 2 perfect games. Is that right, Ted?
Yeah, that's you talk about, it's like getting struck by lightning twice. But that was neat to be a part of. And, you know, one of them was David Cohn's game in '99 at Yankee Stadium. And in 1994, I worked my first plate job at Yankee Stadium. And the cool thing about that was in our dressing room at the old Yankee Stadium, you know, or at least the one that before the one that's existing now, as I was getting ready to work the plate, you know, I'm nervous. It's my first major league plate job, and I'm trying to get myself prepared. And our old clubhouse attendant at that time told me that is where Joe Louis dressed when he fought at Yankee Stadium. And so as I walked down the field, I know this sounds corny, but I could almost feel like the spirit of these old boxers. And every time I walked into that stadium, I felt like, you know, I felt just the ghosts of the old boxers and referees and boxing people there. And I thought about, you know, people sitting around in their, you know, guys would dress up to go to the fights, right? And they'd wear suits and hats and they'd have the big cigars. And, you know, I'm a little bit of an old soul. I would love to have gone to, you know, an old Jack Dempsey fight at Yankee Stadium and been around boxing back then. And, you know, that's when the heavyweight title, the heavyweight crown was the most desired thing in the American sports. And to me, it still is. So you've got this blending of baseball and boxing that comes together, and Yankee Stadium was definitely a place for that.
Ted, tell Mauricio about sparring with Evander Holyfield and then meeting him later.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, get Mauricio here. I was able to work with him when I was much younger. And to say I sparred with him was more like I took a beating for a few days. But he was a wonderful, wonderful man, you know, outside the ring. Inside the ring, he wasn't so wonderful, but a great fighter. And years later, I was doing a game in Atlanta, and I was working behind home plate. and I was working with Paul Schreiber, who was a major league umpire, and he went over and he said to Evander, he said, "Hey, you know, Ted had sparred with you years ago." And Evander said, "Well, I kind of remember." He said, "Well, come by the locker room after." And so we got into the locker room, and I said, "Hey, Evander, you know, sparred with you back in '88," and he said, "You know, I've sparred with a lot of guys. I'm sorry, I don't really remember you." So I laid down on my back and looked up at him, and he said, "Oh, that's Ted. Now I remember you."
I love it.
How did the love for boxing come? I'm intrigued.
You know, I was born in 1965, showing my age, but in 1976, I went to a Rocky movie, and that was actually what started the love affair for it. And I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, and I went to the boys club there, and I said, you know, I would love to start boxing, and we did, and we boxed all the time. You know, when we had fought other boys clubs, and you know, it was then at school that I started walking down the hall and getting a little bit of respect, and I loved that. You know, I grew up with 3 brothers, and they all beat me up pretty regularly. So, or at least my older ones did. I beat up my younger brother, but so it was. Fighting was a way of life for us. Just and being able to get some rules and do it was even better. So, and even as I got into playing other sports, boxing just is so great. The training is so good for other sports, as you know, Mauricio. You know, working the speed bag and it is good for you know, a hitter and his reactions. Working the heavy bag is so good, shoulders and arm strength and using your legs, and so all that stuff translated to me for football and even basketball, getting my legs stronger. And you know, I think one sad thing now is I watch, especially here in Arizona and California, these kids play baseball and they do it year round. And I just wish they would play more sports, and I wish they would do more boxing training, even if they don't want to get in the ring and actually fight. I tell kids, hit the speed bag, hit the heavy bag, learn how to do it right. It just translates into other sports so well.
Unbelievable. You know, do you know Baby Joe Messi from Buffalo?
Oh, yes. Baby Joe was the pride of Tonawanda, New York. You know, almost made it to the Olympics there. And yes, Baby Joe was one of my heroes. What a fighter. What a fighter.
Yes. We have our business, our family business is a manufacturing company of paper charts for recording instruments. Buffalo, New York, graphic controls. We were partners for 50 years. So I've been up there many times. It's a lovely place.
It is a great boxing history. The Buffalo Memorial Auditorium had many fights. As a matter of fact, as we were watching the training, it was a Mancini, and who was he fighting, Steve? Was that Livingston Bramble? Or?
Yes, Livingston Bramble.
Yeah. Yes, and right there at the Buffalo Auditorium. And the Buffalo Auditorium was famous for a lot of professional wrestling, which I know a lot of the boxing community is although when I was in Mexico City, I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but Mauricio, we got to go to some lucha libre when we were there doing a spring training game. And that is a whole different level of ringsmanship there. I mean, those gentlemen are tremendous athletes, acrobats.
Incredible.
Mauricio, isn't baseball growing a lot now more in Mexico? I mean, it was always popular, but I understand that it's getting even more and more popular in Mexico now.
Yeah, baseball, now we have a record number of baseball players in Major League Baseball. And the president of the country, that's his favorite sport. So it's going to be a good period for the sport, with the absolute support from the president and the sports minister.
There's been a lot of talk on and off for the last few years about an expansion Major League Baseball team in Mexico.
You know, we have Mr. Harp Helu. He's a part owner of the San Diego Padres, and he has wanted to bring a franchise team to Mexico for so many years. When the Expos were for selling, that was, Mexico was one of the, and also, you know, Tijuana could be a good city because it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Monterrey
and Mexico City, exactly, or Guadalajara. any of those, they have stadiums that could host Major League Baseball.
Yes, last year, Mauricio, I was able to umpire a regular season game last year between the Astros and Angels in Monterrey.
Yes.
And it was incredible. We got to go by the Salon de Fama there in Monterrey, and the umpires train just outside of the city. And I wanted to mention to you that one of my best friends, and Sean knows him very well, is Mr. Alfonso Marquez, who is the first Mexican-born umpire to make it to the major leagues. And this season, he was named a crew chief.
That's
and so
awesome.
So we blame Alfonso. We said, see what happens. They made you crew chief, and now the season went all to hell. So we blame him for that. But he is very proud of his Mexican roots. He is from Zacatecas. And he said that the next expansion team should go to Mexico City.
Amazing.
So he brought the Moctezuma revenge.
It's his fault.
Sean, it must be a very difficult time for you now with everything being closed in New York. But tell us some of the treasures that you have in your restaurant there. I mean, we walked in there. I mean, I don't mean that there were a few. Every wall is lined with autographed baseballs and some boxing things. Even going down to the bathroom, there are bobbleheads. I mean, it's like you'd go mad trying to look at every single object there. Some of the treasures that you have there.
So truth be told, I'm actually in Florida because I got stuck here when everything went down. So I'm suffering a bit of withdrawal. So I'm actually trying to see what Victor's got over his shoulder, because I haven't seen baseball in 2 months. You know, so yeah, I mean the collection of there is a lot going on, and you know, but yeah, you see the fun thing about the collection of Foleys is there's a story behind almost every piece. So, you know, I mean, and that's what I love about it, is that, you know, when people appreciate it, like when Mauricio, we had a very brief time to go through some of the stuff that we had, but, you know, I can look around and there's a story behind all the different pieces. Actually, just on a side note, we talked about Armando Galarraga, and we also talked about Ted, you having 2 perfect games. The ironic thing is, had Joycey got that play right at first, that crew would have done 2 perfect games in 3 weeks.
Oh my God!
That's the same crew that did the Dallas Braden game. But you know, I enjoy the fact that people enjoy looking at the collection, and people ask me all the time about, you know, what's my favorite piece. You know, obviously apart from the baseball signed by Steve, Ted, and Mauricio. Was what I'm saying, but you know, like, you know, little thing, you know, the ball signed by my son and daughter is important to me, but I grew up watching boxing, and you know, I grew up with you know, and I got a glove signed by Alan Minter, and you know, you guys know who I mean. He wasn't a great fighter, but he had the heart of a lion, but he got the crap beat out of him every single. I mean, his you know, when they would interview him after the fight, there would be just so much blood on his face. It was like interviewing a steak, you know. But for me, that was the trouble, because that's who I grew up. Barry McGuigan I knew Barry well, and Barry's mom and dad were customers in my parents' restaurant back in Ireland, and you know, so you know, there's been a boxing connection, and obviously through Touch Shores, there were some great boxing stories there, and I've been lucky enough to get to meet like Angelo Dundee. One of the first people that ever came to Foley's was Larry Holmes, and like I said, Lennox Lewis was a regular too, and yeah, with huge hands, and you know, he was you know, but the collection has it's a lot of fun, and it's you know, I love when people come in and they look around. I love when people look at something and say, oh my God, I used to have one of those, and you know, it takes them back to their childhood. Whether it's Mauricio, you did it with we saw some of the red stuff that was there, you know, and it's a lot of fun. So Victor, can I ask what's over your shoulder?
I don't know if Victor can speak.
He's muted.
John, maybe tell him a little bit about the Irish Baseball Hall of Fame too, as well.
I remember your dad's eyes when Mauricio gave him the mini belt before we left. Your dad must be a boxing fan too, Sean.
Well, obviously you know, oh wow.
Look at his ear.
Wow.
We can't hear you.
Mauricio, you're muted.
don't you wish you could mute him at sometimes?
Well,
This is 𝗧𝗔𝗟𝗞𝗦 baseball.
But
I'm gonna get this one for your collection. But this what I have. My favorite one is Bob Feller.
Oh, wow.
Rapid Bob.
You want a very quick Bob Feller story. So Bob Feller used to do Indians games with Joe Castiglione. Ted, you'll be familiar with Joe. Joe's the voice of the Reds for the last 35 years. Joe's son Duke is a sportscaster in New York, and he had just started with New York One, and Bob Feller was in town for the bat dinner, and Duke asked Bob to do an interview, and he asked me to come along. So I went to the hotel to meet him. Duke was late, so we showed up. And we take a taxi down, and Bob Feller's in the middle, and I'm intimidated. This guy's a Hall of Famer, and so he's in the middle, and he spent 40 minutes ripping Duke for how unprofessional he was to be late. And he used language, believe me, that I grew up in a bar that would scared me. And then on 40 minutes, all of a sudden he just flipped the switch. He says, "And tell me, Duke, how's your mother doing?"
Oh my God.
But Bob Feller was quite a character. He had a tractor museum in Iowa, I believe.
You know, as long as we're showing off baseballs, I don't want to brag or anything, but I got a Ted Barrett autographed baseball right here, guys. I know you're jealous.
So can I tell a story about that?
please.
If you go into a store and you want to buy a Major League Baseball, an authentic Major League Baseball, it's about $15.
Funny.
So my daughter's surfing on eBay one day and she says, "Hey Dad, there's a baseball up for sale with your signature on it." And I said, "Oh wow, that's awesome. What's it going for?" She said, $150. And I said, "That's pretty good, $150 for my autograph." She said, "No, Dad, $1.50." I said, "So my signature devalued the baseball by $13. That's, you talk about a blow to your ego." So Steve, don't take less than the $1.50 for that ball when you go to sell it.
I'm keeping it.
You are very humble. You are very humble. I want to do an exercise with.
Him right now.
I'm sorry?
Bring Victor back. I'm muting you, Mauricio.
So I want to hear from our guests that we're going to create the greatest boxer of all time from Sean and from Ted, okay? So it's 6 categories, and you're gonna say the fighter of your choice.
Okay.
So first one is power. Who would you put as the greatest punching power ever?
Well, go ahead, Sean. You go first.
If we're going on pure size, can I put Butterbean in there? Would he count?
Yes.
That was amazing.
I'm gonna go with George Foreman's right hand.
Foreman, great. Sean, Butterbean, really?
No. I mean, you got Tyson.
Tyson, good. Jab.
Larry Holmes.
Sugar Ray.
Robinson or Leonard?
Leonard.
Yeah. Leonard, okay. Joe, chin.
Ooh.
Joe Buck.
Joe Buckner?
I'm gonna go Tex Cobb.
Nice.
Boxing skills, ring generalship.
Ali.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Sugar Ray Robinson.
How about heart? You know, those fighters who had the heart and would not.
Pacquiao.
I'm gonna go Marvin Hagler.
Oh, you read my mind, Ted. I swear to God.
So we have power, jab, jaw, skills, and heart. Last one, speed of hands.
Mancini.
Other than Hagler, you see, I usually go heavyweights. Yeah, so I'm gonna go. Wow, just on pure speed. I'm gonna go Sugar Ray Leonard on that.
Okay. Nice. We're going to send you a surprise. Harry, what is your greatest baseball moment in history? Watching, what is that moment that
I think back in '74 when Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record. It's one of those things that it's like the Kennedy assassination. I remember where I was and what I was doing when I saw Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record. It was unbelievable to me.
April 8th.
How about you, Steve?
It's kind of corny, but I think it speaks to the reason what brought me to both sports to begin with, and it both involves the radio. I'm not that old. There was television, but in I think it was February of '64, the Cassius Clay Sonny Liston fight. Of course, there was no. I don't even think there was closed circuit then. So my father listened to it on the radio, and to date myself, I was 9 years old, and I remember sitting in front of the radio with my father, just staring at this thing, listening to this amazing fight just unravel as short. And then again, the rematch later on in May of '65. And then right after that was the 1965 World Series. And I grew up in Los Angeles. I was a Dodger kid. So it all kind of bled together, the admiration for boxing and then hearing the World Series. I know this is getting a little involved, but this was the series where Sandy Koufax refused to pitch on Yom Kippur. That was game one. And I thought I had to ask somebody what Yom Kippur was, not being Jewish. So once it was explained to me, I thought, my God, what integrity this guy has.
Yeah.
And then he came back and pitched, I think, game 5 and 7 and pitched shutouts in both of them. So between being drawn to the Cassius Clay aura, and then later on Muhammad Ali right after that, and having his crown taken from him, the integrity of those two men, and here's my point, the integrity of Sandy Koufax, who's still my hero to this day, and the integrity of Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, it just appealed to me so much, and I see it so much in top level officials that I'm lucky enough to surround myself with, both through boxing primarily and baseball. So a long answer to your short question, I know, but there it is.
Is an umpire entitled to enjoy, to be a fan, to get excited in baseball?
You know, it really, to become an umpire, I tell young people, you have to get the fan out of you. Because, you know, and this is what I'm learning too, the more I get around boxing referees and judges, you don't get caught up in the hype. You have a job to do. You don't have the luxury of sitting back and enjoying all of that because you have to concentrate on what's going on. So when the action is going on during the game, no, you don't think in those terms. And Sean will tell you, we'll go into his place after to unwind, and someone will say, who won? And we actually have to think a minute. What was the score? We can't recall it but if you talk to a fan who just came from a game, he'll tell you, oh, it was 9-5 and so and this. But with us being the job, we leave it, and we leave it on the field. However, to be able to sit back and reflect years later, and I'm sure I'll do more of this after I retire, to think about all the games that I did and the things that I got to do. But when we're in the middle of it, I don't think we can. Now, I do appreciate sometimes some things. I had the pleasure of going to Japan in 2004 with the All-Stars, and a team of Major League players played the Japanese players. And David Ortiz hit a ball that hit the roof of the dome beyond the right field seats that was still on the rise. And I remember in 1995, Mark McGwire hit a home run in Cleveland. There's a Marlboro Man advertisement. So once in a while, even as an umpire, I have to stop and say, wow, that was really cool to see things that happened. So Once in a while, I get that fan moment, but it's not often.
I think you hit, there's one word that completely separates a fan from a professional official, from a working official: concentration. A judge cannot be watching the fight. He can reflect back or he can go home and watch it, but at that moment, he's working the moment and has to be full, absolute concentration. And that's what makes the absolute difference.
Yes, and Mauricio, I think what I try to explain to people, there are some people that are idiots that say, I don't like boxing. But I tell them, if you go to a title fight, the atmosphere, the energy, there is nothing that compares to it. You know, just the buzz of leading up to it, the weigh-in, the day of the event, there is nothing like that. And I think that's the way it is with the World Series. And I compare it to this. I've been able to do 2 World Series that went to Game 7, winner take all. And I think about the 2011 World Series with the Cardinals and the Rangers, and it went back and forth in Game 6 and Game 7. That's the closest thing I think it comes to comparing to a world title fight. But yes, as the umpires and as the judges, we're just locking in and concentrating. We can't get caught up in all of that. But yes, it's great to sit back and reflect afterwards.
So in off season, I'm gonna work through Steve to see if you come and judge a WBC fight.
That would be a dream. Well, I have a request though, and that's very gracious of you, and I don't mean to be picky. I think I would be a better referee than a judge.
Okay.
Because as I go through this training, I think maybe it's just the hands-on thing, and maybe I'd love to get in there and get in the action and separate. One thing I'm finding, and refereeing is hard, don't get me wrong, but I think judging is impossible. You guys have an impossible job.
One of the things we talk about in the seminar, and I think Barry can back me up here, is we talk about being a fan. You know, you have to choose. Do you want to be a fan? Do you want to be an official? And we say that we don't score fights. I'm sorry, we don't watch fights. We score fights. And there's a big difference. And anybody who's been around for a while will tell you, when you're sitting on the apron and looking at a fight, it's different when you're 4 or 5 rows back. And it's really different when you're in the back or watching on TV. So it seems easy. You're right. But it's not. You can't be a fan. You can't even have moments of being a fan.
Yeah.
I have one final question, then it's going to be home run knockout time. With criticism, all of you. Just blow it off. I mean, has anyone ever said anything that's really gotten to you? What do you do about that? Just no one?
If you're asking me, I'd throw them out.
Well,
you come into Foley's, everybody's entitled to my opinion.
Ted, have you ever had something that really, really bothered you?
Yeah, you know, when you put this much energy and effort and concentration into something, you know, you try to just let it go off your back. But we're human, so that's easier said than done. You know, they always say don't read the paper and now it's the internet, right? And you've got so many people that if you read the comments on anything, it does hurt. You know, when someone says this guy's terrible, he shouldn't even have a job, or you know, this guy, they question your integrity, but he must have had money on the game. And,
that makes it's a lack of education really on the part of the fans, and that's what we really have to do. A friend of mine who's a really top actress used to say, if I'm going to believe the good reviews, I'm going to have to believe the bad ones. So you just blow it off. But we are so privileged. I mean, we got to do this again, but we got to do this at Foley's.
All right, I'm in.
Okay, everybody?
Absolutely.
Anybody have anything they want to say while we wrap this up?
Just real quick, Jill, I know I've been talking a lot, but you brought up getting together at Foley's. WBC Cares, everybody knows what a great, wonderful organization that is. Major League Umpires, they have Umps Care.
Yes.
We tried last year to kind of get something off balance. I think if we just maybe recommit to that, all of us as a group, and I think we can really do some awesome things together. And if we do it at Foley's, it culminates in Foley's, all the better.
We're all in. We're all in. We tried to do it last year. Things seem to have gotten away from us on all aspects of life, and we're definitely going to pick that up. It's two great causes together: baseball and baseball and boxing.
Oh my God.
That's
This is wrong.
What
Stuff.
happened?
Anyway, who cares? BBC cares like that. So we are so pleased to have everybody here. Anything, Sean? Anything? Barry? Mauricio?
Stay safe. Everything will go back to normal one day. Enjoy life. Keep your mind, mental health clear. Don't listen to the news. Don't call your friend that is all tragic, everything. No, we will get back. Everything will be fine. And just enjoy your life, your family. And we'll be back with punching power and with great home run power. God bless you. Thank you so much for making this a great afternoon. And I cannot wait to see you all in person.
No virtual hug? I mean, I've got all these guys here.
Yeah.
Virtual hug.
So with this thing of the virtual conferences, we learn to do the virtual hug. So you just lean to the camera and give a hug. Come on, okay. And you can feel it, huh?
And when we're all together again, we'll drink a toast to Jimmy Glenn from Jimmy's Corner.
Absolutely.
yes.
Right?
And you know, today also is the 13th anniversary of Chico Corrales passing away from that tragic accident.
Mm.
So I invite you to watch Corrales Castillo tonight. One of the greatest fights ever.
In my top 3.
Yes.
Absolutely. Around 10 especially.
Mm.
Good night,
Take care, everyone.
of your day. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was fun,
Dios,
guys.
Dios te bendiga, Mauricio.
Dios te bendiga, hermano. Gracias.
Gracias, señor.
Hasta
We'll talk
luego.
later.